What's
Yeah.
the impact of 9/11 on this country and the world?
Oh my gosh, we will never be the same again. Uh, I'm disappointed in people who seem not to realize that it's not business as usual anymore. That it's really there are things we have to do that we don't want to do, but the alternative is far worse.
That was actually 2005, and here we are 12 years later. What would you say today if the same question was asked?
I think I'd give the same answer, and I'd be more apprehensive today because the previous administration has now given Iran the go-ahead to develop nuclear weapons, and Iran is testing intercontinental missiles. Now, the thing that they're supposed to be preparing to do is attack Israel. Israel is closer to Iran than Boston is to Denver, all right? You don't need intercontinental missiles to attack Israel. You need intercontinental missiles to attack people who are on another continent. And there's not a great mystery as to who would likely be the target of it if they ever decided to go that route. And I think right now we're doing what was done by the Western powers in the 1930s as Hitler was building up his war machine. You're going from day to day, and you're taking the easy path and avoiding the hard problems on the assumption that somehow or other you'll muddle through. And they came very close to not muddling through. France, of course, was conquered during World War II. Sometime in one of my columns recently, it may have been one of the last ones for all I know, I suggested that people who want to understand what is happening in the world today should read a book called The Gathering Storm, which is not about today. It's about the 1930s. But once you see this kind of feckless drifting in the face of fatal dangers, you'll understand what kind of thinking is going on, or lack of thinking, is going on today in the way that we're approaching the kinds of dangers we're facing now, which are far worse. Most people don't understand that for the first 3 years of World War II, the Western powers never won a single battle, literally, either in Europe or in Asia. They were beaten time and time again because the pacifists had gotten their way in the 1930s and prevented an adequate buildup of military forces, for which men paid their lives in those early years of World War II. Fortunately, at some point, the West learned their lesson. The United States entered, and with tremendous productive capacity, was able to supply itself, Britain, and the Soviet Union with the power of the weapons needed to defeat the Nazis and later the Japanese. But we're not going to have that kind of time in a nuclear war. You're not going to have 3 years to muddle around and get beaten and then come back. You will be lucky if we have a year to get beaten and still come back.